So now let's cover fats, since we're talking about red meat sources. There's a lot of hate as well on red meat sources because of their high saturated fat intake when you choose to eat higher fatty meat sources. And a high saturated fat intake is really not connected with any health risk when eaten relative to the amount of calories you burn. There's no such thing as an increased coronary heart disease or anything negative that comes from a high saturated fat intake. The research is actually very one-sided with polyunsaturated fats that actually lowers total cholesterol levels, that makes the risk seem that much greater when you have it. So the thing is that having a high saturated fat intake almost guarantees that you have a high monounsaturated fat intake. And monounsaturated fats actually promote optimal health because they help raise good cholesterol, HDL cholesterol. And if you really don't start off with a high cholesterol level, if you are already overweight, there's no need for you to try to lower it, because cholesterol is the starting point of hormone production. It's a single molecule that has the same structure of specific hormones in the body, such as testosterone, estrogen, all those good hormones. And having a pretty high good cholesterol intake does an essential job of optimizing your hormones and how they work on an everyday basis, how you feel. Cholesterol is really only negative when you have high LDL particles in your bloodstream, and you could be able to tell that with a blood test. Really coming to the fact that you're losing weight, you'll actually be lowering the amount of cholesterol that you'll be putting out on an everyday basis. So having a good high cholesterol intake from monounsaturated fats is going to be very, very good for you. But with polyunsaturated fats, it's promoted as being almost the essential fat. Well, it kind of is, but there are specific foods that will help you, like I said before, hit those nutrient requirements. But polyunsaturated fats can also be very negative, and there's a lot of talk within the industry that you should have a high polyunsaturated fat intake and try to avoid saturated fat and monounsaturated fat. Along with trans fatty acids. Basically, you do not want those in your diet because they promote nothing but negative health effects to the entire body. It's a hydrolyzed form of vegetable fat, so that's what trans fats are. They're made by man, so they're really not beneficial for us to consume. So anyways, polyunsaturated fats have great benefits, as in lowering stress and decreasing depressive symptoms. But they also can be very damaging with increases in inflammation if you're taking in too high of a W6, omega-6 intake. You can basically get those from any food source available that we have to us today, such as fast food. Typically, you want to eat really wholesome foods. And even having a high protein intake or a high dietary protein intake from not really good beef can even decrease your testosterone production. It's all within the fats that you consume in order to hit those nutrient requirements to benefit yourself. So fats are still within a range. Typically the higher end that you would want to go is 30% with fats, but 25 is just enough. It makes you feel incredible as well. So remember, high monounsaturated and saturated fat intake, along with some polyunsaturated fat. Make sure when you go to grab food that the labels read a higher monounsaturated fat to polyunsaturated fat intake, and you're good to go with hormone production.